I'd like to introduce to you one of my personal favorite jobs in Bravely Default, thanks to its utility and firepower, the Time Mage. As the name implies, the Time Mage focuses on manipulating time and combat, being able to speed up allies and slow down enemies, keeping the flow of combat strictly under your control. But the Time Mage can also contribute to damage as well, sporting one of the strongest attack spells in the game. But before we dive into all of that, let's go ahead and take a look at their specialty, Time Slip. I wasn't kidding when I said they were masters of time, as this specialty allows you to restart combat from the beginning once an encounter if your team is fully wiped out. This can be useful when going into a boss fight for the first time, allowing you to gauge the battle you are about to begin. Once the plan has been hatched, you can trigger Time Slip by wiping out your own team and begin the fight again with all of your items and abilities fresh, ready to take down your opponent. Do note that Bravely Second does not reset whenever you do die, so if you utilize it before you use Time Slip, it will not come back. Speaking of battling against your opponents, let's go ahead and take a look at the Time Mage's combat abilities, starting with the Quake family. This series of spells is your primary way of covering the earth elemental weaknesses of enemies, allowing the Time Mage to provide extra damage coverage alongside the Black Mage and White Mage. Do note, however, that earth damage is quite unique among other elements, as most means of dealing earth damage will be ignored by flying enemies, as they aren't on the ground. This is a huge blind spot for the spells, but just keep an eye on the foes you're facing and you'll be fine. Second up is the Gravity family. These spells are unique among the other attack spells in the game, as their damage and chance of success are based on percentages rather than calculations. Starting with Gravity, the spell has a 50% chance of dealing damage to an enemy equal to 50% of their maximum HP. So, for example, let's say an enemy has 1000 HP. If Gravity lands, it will deal 500 damage. Graviga is just a slightly better version of Gravity, still sharing the 50% success rate, but will deal 75% of an opponent's max HP. Taking the example from earlier, Graviga will deal 750 damage. If these spells didn't have the 50-50 shot of landing, I might like them a bit more, but they are quite the gamble. Also, they don't work on bosses, so no cheese strats with these, I'm afraid. Last up on the Time Mage's attack spell lineup is Comet, which is a single target non-elemental attack that deals a decent amount of damage. The two big things to note about Comet is that it has a hit count, meaning its damage can spike and dip considerably, and that it also ignores the Reflect spell. This spell has its uses, and it does a decent amount of damage, but why use Comet when you can use its more powerful older brother, Meteor? This is the ultimate high-cost, high-reward spell, randomly selecting 4 targets to rain down more powerful versions of the Comet spell. The two unique catches about Comet apply to Meteor too, allowing it to pressure all foes at once. Pairing this spell with Mimic to negate its costs as much as possible is a true force to be reckoned with, and it can be a good reason on its own to level up Time Mage. Now let's dive into the Time Mage's utility spells, beginning with the Haste and Veil families. Starting with Haste, these spells will increase the speed of their target by 50%, granting them a huge boost when trying to outspeed the enemy. Hastega is just haste, but for everyone on your team, which is even more beneficial as it can aid your entire group in outspeeding your opponents with ease. Veil and Velga increase your target's evasion by 50%, making it more difficult for enemies to land physical attacks on you. Pairing this with certain abilities that net you buffs for dodging attacks is a powerful combo. Next up is the debuffs, Slow and Stop. Slow is pretty much just the opposite of Haste, where you can select a target or targets to slow down their speed by 50%, creating a significant gap in speed between your team and the enemy. But if cutting their speed down a notch isn't enough, you can also use Stop, which can halt their movements entirely. When under the effect of Stop, the afflicted cannot act or charge BP, though buffs that they may still have on their person will still be active. Most enemies can be stopped with little issue, but bosses require a bit more effort to successfully halt, but if done so, you can make a difficult fight into a walk in the park. Third on the list of buffs is Quick. This spell raises the target's hit count by 50%, up to a 200% increase. Hit count is a large contributor to your damage calculations, meaning Quick naturally increases your target's damage output, especially if they are a physical attacker like a ninja or a monk. The higher your hit count is before you apply Quick, the better the buff will be, as it is a percentage increase. Now these next spells are sort of in their own category, as they don't fit well anywhere else, and they are Teleport and Regen. Teleport can instantly get you out of encounters or dungeons, sending you back to the movement screen. Excellent for escaping rough battles gone wrong, or for exiting dungeons when you have no teleport stones. Just make sure you have enough MP to cast it beforehand. Regen is a spell that applies a constant heal on a target that will restore 3% of their max HP at the end of every turn. Due to the low healing potency of Regen, this spell is seen more as a light top-up in random encounters rather than a support heal you can rely on, as bosses will absolutely outdamage the heal it can provide. And finally, before we move on to support abilities, we need to talk about re-raise. For 80 MP, you apply re-raise to a target of your choosing. When that character is KO'd by any means, they will instantly be raised back into the fray, using up the re-raise cast. This is an extremely powerful failsafe on your teammates, being able to keep your team from immediately crumbling from a single death. Not only that, but pairing Time Magic with the Black Mage's Group Cast All allows you to cast re-raise on your entire team, giving everyone an extra life for 1/4 the MP cost. This is such a powerful spell that just adds onto the Time Mage's already stacked lineup of spells. First up on the support ability lineup is Magic Attack 10% and 30% up. These abilities are fairly self-explanatory, as they will increase the damage output of any magic attack outside of Gravity Magic, as that is based on maximum HP. Use this to increase your already high magic attack power, or to give struggling magic jobs a boost to their own damage output. Second up is Slow Parry. When the user is attacked by a single target physical attack, there is a 50% chance for them to retaliate with Slow on the attacker. This can be used as an easy means of punishing enemies for focusing on certain members of your team, especially if you slot the support ability on a tanky character with aggro management tools. Strong support ability with an awesome effect. Now we get to Time Slip, the Time Mage's specialty. My opinions on this ability haven't changed very much since my earlier remarks on it, as it serves a very similar purpose. Bring it along when learning boss encounters to make figuring out how to deal with certain enemies much easier. Since Time Mage has control over time itself, it makes sense that they would have stop immunity. As the name suggests, the user of this support ability cannot be affected by stop. The spell is quite rare to see in an opponent's repertoire, but regardless, when it does come in handy, it can really make or break those fights, since stop cannot be cured through any means other than waiting out its duration. Next is Save Time Magic MP. With how expensive some of the later spells can be, like Re-Raise and its 80 MP, or Meteor with its 99 MP, this support ability, which lowers the cost of Time Magic by 25%, can be a lifesaver. Too bad it takes up 2 slots to use, but I guess the developers knew the power of Time Magic was just too great for 1 slot. Finally, we have 2 very interesting support abilities, Slow World and Hasten World. Slow World will lower BP for everyone in combat by 1 every other turn. This can be utilized to keep the BP count of bosses who tend to default as low as possible. You can even be a little cheeky and lock them out of some turns since their BP might be in the negatives every other turn. And on the flip side, we have Hasten World, which gives everyone in combat an extra BP charge every single turn. This is a super powerful double-edged sword, as this can give you an easier way of using abilities that require BP, as you'll naturally have more charges to spend, creating more variety in strategy. However, since enemies also get more BP, they become more dangerous as they can now brave more often. Keep that in mind. So I'm just going to start this by saying that the Time Mage is probably in my top 3 favorite jobs in this game. It has the base stats to perform well as a magical attacker and a decent healer. The Time Mage's own repertoire of attack spells aren't anything to laugh at either, as they have Earth Elemental coverage and a powerful non-elemental spell that can rip through any enemy with ease. But of course, the biggest benefit of the Time Mage in my opinion is their utility spells, being able to control turn orders, stop enemies in combat, increase damage output through quick, create escape options in dungeons, and of course applying re-raise to their team for the ultimate safety net. This isn't even covering some of the really stupid things you can do with their support abilities like Hasten World, which is one of, if not the most common support ability used when creating every single super busted strategy in the game. There is just so much to love about this job, but it does have a few blind spots. For one, even with Save Time Magic MP, the spell costs of the Time Mage are insane, requiring a large MP pool to manage these spells. The Quake family have a huge weakness against certain enemy families, making that set of spells more situational than any other element. But other than their terrible fashion sense, which we'll get to soon, the Time Mage is an unstoppable magic machine that supplies some of the strongest attack and support options in the game. My opinions of this job barely change when looking at it as a sub-job, since the benefits the Time Mage can offer carry over well to most other jobs in the game. You can slot it onto another magical team member and have them take advantage of the attack spells like Meteor, or have the Time Mage slotted on a physical job to be outfitted as a utility option. granting the team buffs when not going on the offense. The biggest weakness of Time Mage as a sub-job is, again, their MP cost. It just takes a lot of MP to cast their more powerful spells, even with Save Time Magic MP. Now, normally I'm really excited for the fashion tier list segment. However, I'm just gonna get this over with. I really don't like the Time Mage attire. I can kinda see what they're going for with the clock motif around their neck and head, but holy moly was it botched. Everything just looks so weird. Plus the amount of buttons on their attire, I wouldn't be surprised if Tetsuya Nomura was the lead designer on these outfits. No shade on Nomura's designs, I like them quite a bit, but damn, there are so many buttons. Overall, not impressed with these designs at all, and I can go on and on about it, but this video is long enough already, so let's just speed this up. D, 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 D. Done.